Hey, this is Kev with Blender Binge, back with another tutorial for you. This time we're going to be creating this really cool looking holographic Earth thingy that you've probably seen in like Prometheus or in Star Wars or Star Trek or like any sci-fi TV show produced in the last 875 years. Yeah, that's right. 875 years. I actually said that. We're going to do it in Eevee, we're going to do it in Blender 2.8, and it's going to be awesome. So let's go. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to need an Earth. So I'm going to go to Add, but as one of my subscribers says, don't use Add too much. So I'm going to go ahead and appease him, and I'm going to teach you the Shift-A shortcut. So anywhere on the menu, anywhere I mean in the window, you hit Shift-A, and you get this ability to add whatever you want. Okay? So we're going to hit Mesh, we're going to hit UV Sphere, and boom, there. So now we get this like faceted, beautiful looking UV sphere that's totally like not useful for what we want. So we got to make it useful. So we're going to smooth it out. So to do that, I'm going to go to my little modifier, wrenchy thing, add modifier, subdivision surface. Cool. Now it's like more smoothish. I said that, smoothish. Now I'm going to go to object, and I'm going to go to shade smooth. Boom. Nice and smooth. Okay? It's like a pearl. Look at that. So what we're going to do is I'm going to move this guy up onto the grid. So it sits on the grid. So I'm going to hit N on the keyboard to call up this menu. And then for location, Z, I'm just going to hit 1 meter, or 1, and it just defaults to meter. Booyah. Look at that. So now he's on the grid. And then I'm just going to hit Shift A again. And I'm going to add a plane underneath them. And I'm just going to scale that plane up like, I don't know, far. Doesn't really matter. I don't know, go to 70 something. All right, so there we go. And now I can get to work on the shader. So being that we're in Blender 2.8 and the gods of Blender have smiled on us and given us these workspaces, I'm going to use them. So I'm going to go to shading, and you see that they put us right into this look dev mode. Most of the time this is cool, now it's not. So I'm going to go ahead and change this to rendered. And this is what Eevee sees. So the first thing I see is I have this light. I don't want it, so I'm going to get rid of it. So bye-bye light. And you see that this guy's getting lit now by the sky. Okay, the sky. The sky lives over here under this world view, and the color is the sky. So you can like change that. But I'll leave it right now at this kind of dull gray color, because why not? And that's about it. So let's get to work on the shader. First things first, we select our Earth. And I'm going to go ahead, sphere, I'm going to call that Earth. So with that selected, let's hit New. And just like putting us into that look dev area, we also, this Blender 2.8, when you hit New in this workspace, gives us principled BSDF shader. Like 99.854321 times, this is great. But like right now it's not. So I'm going to get rid of it. Boom, gone. And I'm going to add in something called an Emission Shader. So I'm going to hit Shift A. I'm going to go to Shader. And I'm going to hit Emission. And I'm going to wire this into this. All right, so this goes, the emission is just, it gives off light. So you'll see what it does in a minute. So I'm going to plug in an image that's going to drive this and tell it where to give off light and where not to. And that's going to give us a cool like hologram glowy thing. So I'm going to go A, or Shift A, and I'm going to go to texture, image texture. I'm going to wire this up. And I'm going to use a texture that I grabbed off of NASA.com, or the blue marble. I'm going to link to it in the description. So if you check the description area and you want the link, I'm going to link directly to it so you can grab it. And so I'm going to load it in now. Okay, and here it is on my sphere. And that is South America, and that is North America, and Africa. And if I push up the strength here, you can see that that's our little spaceship that floats around in space that we take such great care of and love. So we're going to change the color here, because this is just like white, and black, and it's not just, I don't know, it's just, it's not, I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling it. So I'm going to go ahead, add in converter and color ramp. And if I take color ramp, and you see how like it changes the color when I drop it on top of that line? If you do that, you're on the line and you drop it, it wires itself up. So you don't have to like, it's an extra step you don't have to do. So it's kind of cool. And then I can just take where it's white and I can change white to whatever I want. And I want that. So there we go. And you can see now with the strength, right? I can take the strength and play with the strength and it lights it. But it's not quite hologrammy yet. Lastly, there's a trick that I showed you guys in the last video I did on the wormhole. If you haven't watched it, you should probably watch it because took me like forever to make. But watch it, and there's a cool little trick I use, but I'll show you it here anyway, so even if you don't watch it, that's cool. If you go to here, material, and you go to blend mode, all right, for material, which I'm gonna call earth, just so I can explain this better, not Earth. What the hell's Earth? Earth. And I blend mode opaque, I go to additive. Boom. If I take the strength down, I am now getting this really cool holographic earth, right? And you can see through it. So I'm going to go to the world and I'm going to turn this gray shade to black so you can see this better. And there you go. That is a really fast way of getting a shader, of getting this hologram to look pretty cool. However, there is a warning. This does not interact very well with your environment. So even if I go to Eevee and I turn on all the cool stuff like bloom and turn on screen space reflections and refraction, which I totally don't need, but I'm going to leave it on anyway just because I don't know, because I want to. And I go to, let me see here. I go to render and I render the image. All right. It renders pretty nicely, but it doesn't give me an alpha. And you say, wait, Kev, I know why. Duh, because you haven't changed the transparency in Eevee. Well, duh, yeah, I haven't. So let's do that. So here's a good way to change the transparency in Eevee. So if you want to render with a transparent background, you can in Eevee. All you have to do is go to where it says render up here and go to film, because that's like the first place I'd ever think of like going to find transparency for a background, right? So I go to film and I go to alpha and change from sky to transparent, because you know sky, that's the first thing I think of when I want to render with transparency. But anyway, so transparent. Now check this out. I go to render. I could hit F12, but now watch this. Alpha. You still see it. So I'm going to go ahead and select this. I'm going to hit 0. And I can see my camera has the crappiest view possible. So I'm going to hit N. I'm going to go lock camera to view. And now I'm going to move this around and pull this out. And I'm going to show you what I really mean now. So if I hit F12 on the keyboard to render, there it is. So there's your transparency. Okay, so you go to film, you change sky to transparent, and well, there you go. It's right there. And your alpha is right there. However, you do not see the alpha for ding 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 ding. You don't see the alpha for the Earth, right? Because it's additive. It's just like a blending mode. It's kind of a fake. So this is where that falls apart. Plus, not seeing a reflection at all in this little thing down here on the floor. So here's how we fix that. If I look at my shader for this dude, really cool, right? I could keep this. This is great. This is beautiful. It works. It's wonderful, and everything is perfect. But I have to add in something to change this. So I need to mix two shaders together to get the effect. So I hit Shift A, and I go to Shader, and I say Mix Shader. And I drop it in, and it wires itself up to the first shader. And now I'm going to put in another shader down here. Shift A, Shader, Transparent, and hook that up there. So now my factor controls how much of what is doing what. So if I go to the first shader, which would be factor 0, I'm getting complete emission. If I change factor to 1, I get complete transparent. Right? So that's cool, but it's not giving us the holographic effect. Like, we're still on additive here, and we're still not seeing anything down here. So the second I change that, it's going to go away. So watch this. Let me turn on world, turn this up a little bit so you can see what I'm talking about. Right, additive, go to material, change this back to opaque, nothing. You do see a reflection down here, but nothing here. So if I change opaque to alpha clip, okay, you see nothing here, but watch this. When we go and change this factor, I can drive the transparency with this, and you'll see the magic happen. So I'm going to borrow from this guy. I'm going to hit Shift D, bring him up. I'm going to plug color into factor. Now this isn't going to do what we need because this isn't a pure black and white image in here, but I'm going to load one in. So I'm going to go open image. I'm going to load in this guy, which I'll link to as well. Now, look at that. My reflection, okay, if I go, I'm going to turn this back down, this background color. I'm going to turn it back down to black. It looks cooler. You can see I'm reflecting, and it's transparent. Okay, see that? Totally transparent. And yeah, you see some black here. It looks kind of ugly. That's just the black color right here. So you could go here and change this. You could get rid of that. You can add in another color here, and you can just kind of bring that back down a little bit. All right, and there you go. And you can start getting some interesting looking shader effects here. And now you have this hologram. So if you go up to, let me turn this back down to 0, it's reflecting. And it's kind of odd that it's reflecting because this guy doesn't have a shader on him. So if I put a shader on him, hit new, right? And I go to principled, and I just say metallic to 1, roughness to 0, gives it a mirror. All right, there it is. And it's only reflecting the opaque part. So now I can push my, let's see, if I select there and I push my strength up, you get a glow. Or I could go here and take the bloom up. All right, bloom, intensity 2. Nah, that's kind of crazy. Maybe 1. Nah, it's still crazy. 0.5. Yeah, that's kind of cool. And there you go. All right, so here's like a pretty cool looking holographic shader. And you can go ahead and control all of this stuff if you want. Play around, you can animate it, you can do a whole lot of stuff. And the cool part of this is that, watch this, I hit F12 now, I get transparency, I go to alpha, there's my alpha. So you can render with an alpha with this. And the trick really was just going to material and changing blend mode to alpha clip. So here is the icing part of the video. We're going to make the grid, we're going to make the lines, and we're going to make it look really cool. I'm going to make a grid. To do that, I'm going to hit Shift D, duplicate our Earth. And then for Earth here, I'm going to go to my little modifiers thing, add modifier, wireframe. I get a wireframe, but it's way too thick. So I'm going to change thickness to like 0.005. And then I'm going to go to the material tab for that guy. I'm going to say new material slot, give it a new material, take Earth, I'm going to say copy material, go to material 2, paste material, and now I can get rid of the Earth thingy. And I'm going to call this latitude, longitude. And then I can just give it a pure emission shader, so I'll keep that color, I like that color. And I'll just plug the emission into surface here. I don't need to bother with all this transparent stuff. You can leave it here if you want to play with it later. And you bring that strength down, and then all of a sudden when I click off of there you go. Pretty nice. All right, so Earth, I'll call this grid. And now you can just play with the emission strength for your grid. Bring it up, bring it down. And then you can control the wire too by just going back here to your wireframe shader. Thickness, let's see, 0.001. There we go. So that's kind of cooler. Now what we can do is we can add those cool little orbital lines, right, that you saw in the beginning. So I'll just go add, curve, circle, bring that up. So that's sitting on the floor right now. So let's bring it up to the elliptic, which is in the middle of the earth, right? So let's just say 1. And I'll scale him up a little bit. Then what I can do is I can just go here to this little object data and change fill mode from half to full. And now go to geometry, hit bevel depth 0.01. That's pretty big. 0.005. Let's see what that looks like. That's cool. And while I'm here, I'm just going to change resolution for here to like 25 and resolution up here to 50. And now that it won't be squared off, it'll look really nice when we render it. And let's give it a shader. So I'll just go ahead and build in a quick new shader for here. And so I'll just hit new, get rid of the principled. I'll just use an emission shader. So Shift A, emission. Okay, this is kind of a review for what we did before. Gives it an emission, and you can see it's reflecting now. Okay, I can go ahead and give it some of this blue shader, and there we have an orbital ring. But it's not really interesting yet, but we're going to get there. So I can go ahead, leave that there. I can hit Shift D, enter, and I can kind of twirl one of these around. So I'll go on the X, right? I could do Shift D again, enter, maybe make that go the other direction. And now what I can do is you can see that the shaders, it's kind of dull, not doing too much. So let's take the strength here, or we could take the color and do something similar to what we did before. Or we could just go and borrow from the others. So let's do that, it's faster. I'm going to borrow from the others. So I'm going to go to Material, and over here, I'm going to change this to, let's say, Earth, and that gives it that Earth shader. I'll hit New. I'll go to Earth. I'll hit Copy Material. I'll go down to this new slot. I'll hit New. And I know, there's like many ways to do this. This works, so trust me here. I'm just going to do it. Paste. Get rid of this guy. And now I have Material 3. And I'll call this Orbits. And what I can do with this now is I can take this water. I don't need this to control the factor of the transparency anymore. So I don't need this guy, so I can get rid of him. Nor do I need this, get rid of this. And I get this nice kind of really cool glowy bright thing, right? Okay, you get that glowy thing here? All right, so I can hit Shift A, and I'll use, I'll just choose brick, why not? Brick texture here. Go to factor, and now it breaks it up pretty nicely. And it's just a quick cheat to being able to get a kind of more interesting looking effect on these orbits. And it'll break up the glow too. And you can change the frequency, and you can play around, and there's like quite a bit of stuff you can do here. Change the scale. The scale will change how many how much the breakup is, and you can get some really cool effects just by playing with that. So now you can select these other guys here and just change that to orbits. Shake this guy, change this to orbits. And now your one emission strength controls all of the orbits. And you can kind of randomize it if you want. And there you go. Now lastly, you'll see that this is kind of not a very well sampled reflection. So for that, you just go to Eevee, Render, And you can bump this up, I don't know, something pretty high. And it'll clean it up a bit. And the higher you go, I think the better it goes. And you go render image. And there you go. Now lastly, we could probably turn on the sky too and get a nice render out of that. So we can go to film, transparent, change it back to sky, hit F12, and there you go. All right, and the last thing we can do is animate a camera if you want, or you can go ahead and hunt for a cool view. And you can rotate these guys around a little bit just to give it some randomness. So change that to local, rotate, pull him around. Let's see, pull this guy around. And let's say pull, yeah, that's fine. Rendered, get 0 for the camera. And there it's broken up a bit, a little more random. And you can play around. You could also like change these. You could change the direction of this if you want. Push it out. Now I know some astrophysicist or some orbital mechanic is looking at this video going, "Yeah, you can't do that. No. Your orbit has to be like an apogee and parity." No, it's fine. This is art. Like, just go ahead and have fun, and get something that looks kind of interesting to you, and have at it. So if I hit render now, we'll see the last magic. Okay, so lastly, I decided the brick texture was a little too I don't know, boring for me. So I put in a Voronoi, and I used intensity and Minkowski fourth closest, played around with the scale and the exponent, and it looks a little bit better now, a little more breakup, and there you go. So hopefully you got something out of this tutorial. If you did, hit like, subscribe, share it, hit the little bell notification. And if you do create stuff like this, you know, you can link to it in the comments. I'll try to turn the spam filter off for a lot of that stuff, because I know it catches links and stuff. But you know, hopefully you can share it, and you know, I'll give you some feedback or critique, or other people will, and go at it and have fun. So with that, let's close this one out, and I'll talk to you in the next video. Thanks.